Good people, great people, guys, people. What the deal? My name is Professor Odies, and this is another episode of The Antidote. Welcome, 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 welcome. I hope everybody had a great Turkey Day. I hope everybody, got their Thanksgiving feel. I hope, if you was with your family, that time with your family was fantastic. And if you weren't with your family, I hope that the time with your friends was fantastic. And if you weren't with your friends, I hope that, the Spirit of God, the Almighty, the ancestors, and the universal brought you through whatever time of difficulty that you were experiencing. And if you are still experiencing that time of difficulty, I firmly hope and believe that you have the strength, the resources, and the ability to pull through. So, good people, today we are going to have the conversation called The Fake Masculine is Falling, right? And the reason why I wanted to do this conversation is I don't know if y'all knew this about me, but I'm real deep in the spiritual community, man. Like I'm real deep in the spaces of, once again, understanding the relationship between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. I got a lot of friends who, work on the houses and work in the signs and work in the real astrology, you know what I'm saying? And they do all the ascending, the descending, the ascendance, and the intersections and all that good stuff. You dig what I'm saying? My specialty in that space is alignment, and my specialty in that space is I guess you could call it not necessarily clairvoyance, but I forget what it's called. Clair consciousness, or I can't ever remember what it's called, but essentially assisting people with alignment, understanding symbols, understanding how it is that particular events or how it is that things line up within their lives, run through their own individual vibrations and their own individual claircognizance. There it is. Woo, I knew it was going to come. But that's what it is that I do, and that's how it is that I mostly help not only just my clients traditionally, but also my clients in coaching. It's almost like when you tell me what's going on within your life, or when you tell me what you are experiencing, and I ask you the follow-up questions of, well, how have you contributed to this? What are the thought patterns that you have around this? What are some of the things that you've learned? How are some of the things that you have internalized impacting this? Once again, it's a vibration, it's communication, and how that relates to your alignment within the entire, universal space. So that's what it is that I do in the spiritual community. And for the last couple of months, I would want to say up to a year, one of my friends, her name is Grace Adu. Shout out to Grace Adu Bohan. She was telling me like, yo, the age of the divine feminine is coming. Like the age of the feminine is coming. The age of the woman is coming, and the tower of the masculine is going to fall, or the tower of the how can I say, the purposeless masculine, the tower of the malevolent masculine, the tower of this patriarch that we have come accustomed to engaging with is falling, and it is going to fall, right? Now, the reason why I titled my live, The Fake Masculine is Falling, is because I don't know if y'all have been paying attention, but there have been a lot of indictments going on, a lot of them, right? Whether it be Diddy, whether it be, one of the associates of Bad Boy, whether it be somebody said that Trey Songz was going to be up on next on the chopping block. Somebody else said they wouldn't be surprised if Jay-Z would be coming down as it relates to these investigations that are going on, specifically related to either sexual misconduct, abuse, harassment, all of these different things earlier in their career, and how it is that these things are going to impact not only just their career, but the face of careers and the face of the trajectory of the world moving forward, right? So 9 times out of 10, when I'm talking about the masculine, or 9 times out of 10, when I'm talking about masculinity, I am talking about the masculinity that exists as we perform it, right? Or I'm talking about the masculinity that exists as we attempt to present it. And each time I run into this type of masculinity, like the red pill masculinity, the manosphere masculinity, the masculinity that essentially stipulates that you have to dominate, invalidate, suppress, and, manipulate women in order to reassert your manhood. I've always pushed against this masculine because I've known that this is not the true masculine, right? I've known deep in my spirit and deep in my intuition that this is not the, once again, the divine masculine that we as men are supposed to be aligning ourselves with. So I found it very interesting because, you know, during Thanksgiving, I'm having conversations with my cousins who are men. I'm having conversations with my family members, and I'm beginning to recognize that, once again, the way in which men have been taught to engage with women is inherently damaging to the community at large because it does not allow women to engage in their full autonomous selves, which is not a part of the divine order, right? So a number of people, namely men, are also talking about this whole idea of, once again, this concept of the New World Order, or this concept of, oh, all these black men getting pulled down because they was finna buy something, or they was finna, Listen, brother, listen. Even if I were to agree with that premise, right? I got to be careful about hitting this boom. Even if I were to agree with that premise, right? Even if I were to walk down that lane or walk down that road, the divine masculine essentially calls you to task, right? So in other words, if you had not intercepted this being, and when I say this being, I mean this woman or this entity in this way, then there would have been no cows to call home at this point in time. There would not have been any chickens to come home to roost at this time. There would have been no, consequence to your action karmically that you would have had to deal with at this point in time. There would have been none. Why? Because you would not have gone into this space, or you wouldn't have not engaged in this space with that type of karmic intent, right? So when we are talking about this from a spiritual perspective, or when we are talking about this from a socio-political perspective, there are a number of black men who are being called to task for their previous transgressions against the order, right? Against the order of spirit, against the order of what it is that we identify as the balance between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. Like, in my belief system, there is no way that you can continue to engage in the way that you are engaging without paying some type of price, right? Whether it be an immediate transaction such as cash, a delayed transaction such as a delayed transaction such as debit, or a transaction that comes back to you tenfold with interest, such as credit. Right? And a lot of these brothers have built their entire careers, have built their entire personas, have built their entire identities off of masculinity that was purchased on credit, that was funded by the spirits of women. Right? That was funded by the energy of the divine feminine. But we don't like to see it that way. We do not like to see it as something that we have to be called to alter for, right? We as men do not like seeing it as something that is the consequence of behaving like a malevolent masculine. We do not see it that way, right? We do not see this cyclically, right? We do not see this Afrocentrically. We do not see this communally. We see it individualistically. We see it linearly. We see it only happening in one way. We see it as a hierarchy. We see it as man being dominion and women being dominated. My brother, the way of the world does not work that way. It does not. The Afrocentric way does not work that way. It doesn't. Right? In quantum mechanics, in quantum physics, they say every action has an equal and opposite reaction. They never said that their reaction was going to happen at the time that the action happened. They never said that as soon as this happens, this outcome also happens. Right? So y'all don't understand that the fall of the false masculine has been going on for the past 100 and some years. This is not something that is recent. This is not something that is new, right? It is just coming to a head. It is coming to an apex, right? Now, why is this relevant, right? Why are we talking about this fall of the false masculine, right? Y'all gotta follow me because it's a lot of parts and it's a lot of you know what I'm saying, pieces to this that a number of men do not enjoy speaking about or do not enjoy engaging in conversations about because it makes them feel powerless, right? It makes them feel as if though the power that they used to have or the power that they never had access to is shifting hands. And it is. It is, right? What do I mean by this? So, going back to these indictments, right? Going back to the 50th anniversary of hip hop, where we're having conversations around how it is that misogyny and how it is that this pseudo masculine or this bravado or all of these things has not only contributed to the quote unquote death of hip hop, but it's also contributed to real life effects. It has contributed to real life implementations in our neighborhoods. It has contributed to real life psychological issues in our people. This following of this false masculine, right? This following or this construction of this system that is based upon kowtowing to men instead of holding them accountable for what it is that they are doing, right? We are coming to a space, or I believe that we are coming to a clearing in socio-cultural dynamics where we are truly beginning to see what men have the capacity to stand 10 toes and to say, you know what? I did that and I have no remorse. Right? Because let's be very clear. Let's be extremely clear. A lot of these men are eating fruit from a tree that has roots in a ground and in soil that has been tainted. Right? The idea, let's take it there, right? Let's take it biblically, right? The idea of a gendered God is the reason why so many men are not willing to publicly evaluate themselves and publicly hold themselves accountable for their transgressions. Right? I'm going to say this one more time. The concept of a gendered God is the reason why a number of men do not like being publicly evaluated. They do not like airing themselves out, and they do not enjoy being identified as somebody who is either powerless, somebody who has no influence, somebody who is not able to, once again, be called to task or be questioned for their creations. Why is this relevant? A number of us as black folk come from Christian, directly Christian or Christian influenced households, right? The type of Christianity that we were given in a lot of different ways is based upon fundamentalist idolatry. What do I mean by this? The man is the top and the center of the universe. The man is the top and the center of the universe, right? So I just got through reading this book, Sensual Faith, by Pastor Levon Briggs. Shout out Pastor Levon Briggs, you know what I'm saying? And in this book, there are a number of references to biblical scholars that identify how it is that spirituality and how it is that it is disseminated within the church harms women, and it removes them from their experiences within their own body, and it creates cognitive dissonances simply because the way that it is that the politics of a male-centered and gendered God are disseminated within a church dynamic creates an environment where men are not held accountable to the chaos that they create. And the higher that they go in a hierarchy, the less likely they are to be held to task or to be held accountable for what it is that they've done. Why? Because as they go higher in the hierarchy, the flock tend to believe that they are what? Closer to God. They have done the work to understand the word of God. They have done the work to be spiritually viable. Otherwise, they would have not been placed in this position. That is not always true. And even if that person was placed in this position of authority and power by the community are still the people who can hold them accountable to them being thorough, to them being intentional, and to them implementing peace and not chaos. The largest population in the black church to this day is not black men. It is black women. The largest population in the black church, in the pews, in the spiritual space is not black men. It is black women. Therefore, the concept of a male-gendered God, and only male-gendered God, even though none of the books in the Bible support the idea of only a male-gendered God. Notice how I did not say that the male-gendered God did not exist. I said that none of the books in the Bible support the idea of only a male-gendered God. Right? Let me be very careful and let me be very intentional with my words. Right? Because it said in the beginning, God did this. Did not say he, did not say she, God. Right? That's one. Two, in multiple spiritual texts, not only just inside but outside of Christianity, God refers to itself as we, as in the collective. Meaning that even if this God was gendered male, it takes into account the collective. And the collective is not only male. Right? So, what does this have to do, once again, with holding men accountable? The way in which we are taught about the Bible, it is taught that you should not question God. Multiple biblical scholars, multiple women biblical scholars, multiple Dr. Reverend so-and-so woman who have done the work, who have gone to divinity school, who have done their theological work, who have learned these things, have identified that the Bible does not say that. Actually, they say that a thinking and a questioning Christian is a true Christian. Why? Because the God of their Bible invites you to have conversation. The God of their Bible invites you to understand. How can you understand without asking questions? How can you understand without seeking understanding? Right? So going back to the book that I'm referring to, which is called Sensual Faith by, Pastor LaVon Briggs, right? Once again, also in this book, there is the concept of what is called biblical idolatry, right? A number of men who are in positions of power in any Christian denominated church. We know about the cherry picking that people do in the Bible. We know, right? Biblical idolatry is when you do not have conversation, or you do not critically analyze, or you do not deeply dive into the text that you are reading. You simply take it at face value, or even worse, as somebody else has given it to you. Why is this relevant? Why is this important? Why are most of the political boards of black churches men? Why are most of the political decisions made by men? Why are most of these contextual thought processes provided by men in the pulpit? Even on social media, how often do we see preachers who are women, pastors who are women, coming across our timelines? Very rarely do we see it. Very rarely do we see it. But consistently, we hear about church trauma. Consistently, we hear about church hurt. Consistently, we hear about how it is that black women have been harmed in these houses of God. Yet these men continue to hold their positions. Yet these men continue to be able to access and influence these populations. Women are beginning to speak up louder, longer, and with more intensity. They are beginning to leverage their political weight. They are beginning to leverage their political knowledge. And they are beginning to leverage their economic access in order to build the world that they would like to have their children in, that they themselves would like to thrive in. And 9 times out of 10, it is a world that is antithetical to the world that we as men have been taught that we should inherit. 9 times out of 10, the reason why men do not want to engage in feminist conversations is because they do not see themselves in it. The reason why they do not see themselves in it is because they are the type of man that a feminist, a womanist, any type of woman with a clear conscience is moving against. So what does this have to do with the fall of the false masculine? What does this have to do with the fall of our literal idols? Because when you idolize, usually what happens is that you remove critical thought. You remove critical engagement, or the ability for you to critically engage with this person is hid behind smoke and mirrors. It's hid behind fancy wordplay. It is hidden behind these political structures that protect this person. These political structures are beginning to corrode. These social structures are beginning to corrode. Why? Because these idols do not have as much power as they used to have. Because the belief in this type of masculine, or the need for this type of masculine, is slowly dwindling. The sunset on the false masculine is quickly approaching. Why? Because people began to dig into their spiritual sense. People began to dig into the word of the Bible, or people began to dig into the word of God, or people began to dig into other ideologies, and they recognize, yo, you not moving the way that you said that you're supposed to move. You as a man, or you as a masculine, are not moving with this divine integrity. You are not bringing peace. You are not providing protection. You are causing chaos. You are causing pandemonium. You are causing fear. That is not what the divine masculine does. That is not what the true masculine does. So how can you sit here and call yourself a man? How can you sit here and have the audacity to ask to be, or demand to be followed? How can you sit here and have the audacity to be upset when nobody wants to deal with you? The chickens have come home to roost. The cows have come home to rest. And brother, because you did not tend to your flock, because you did not till your land, because you did not plant your seeds appropriately, your yield is not enough to sustain the energy that it requires to be this false masculine. You can't say you ain't shit without saying you ain't it. I'm going to say that one more time. You can't say that you ain't shit without saying you ain't it. Right? So, there are a number of people who have asked me, Odie, where do you get your ideologies of masculinity from? Odie, where do you begin to understand your masculine? Odie, what does that look like for you? Now, I'm going to be very honest. Very, very, very honest. I, as a man, get a lot of my ideologies or a lot of my conceptualizations of masculinity from the predecessors or the ancestors, right? The brothers that came out of the civil rights movement and went into the Black Panther movement. The liberation-minded brothers, right? So the book that I just pulled up, y'all know I always got a book in front of me, and y'all know I always got a book somewhere. It's a book by Hakeem Madabudi. It is called Black Men, Obsolete, Single, and Dangerous, The African Family in Transition, right? And the only reason why I didn't pull up Ms. Levon's book, because I don't have it right in front of me. It's in my satchel, right? But within this book, it talks a lot about how it is that we as black men not necessarily have lost our way, but what black masculinity looks like in this space of transition, right? And what it looks like for us as black men to engage in such a way where we do not do unnecessary harm to the community, and we do not engage in the deconstruction of our community for the sake of ego-based and individual-based growth, right? So y'all give me a second, because I'm looking for, there it is. Ooh, there we go. I found it. I love it, 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 I love it. So, there is a quote in this book that says, while spending 3 years in the United States Army, I learned a great lesson. I, like all the other men, had to make my bed, clean my work and sleep areas, do kitchen duty, and perform other acts that had been defined by U.S. culture as women's work. It seems to me that if we could do so-called women's work in the Army, then we can do it in civilian life, especially if our mates are working full-time jobs also. Let me explain something to y'all, man. This book was written on the cusp of the 70s and the 80s. This book was written almost 40 years ago. This book was written almost 40 years ago. Let me keep going, right? It is insensitive and callous for men to expect their wives or mates, who often work 8 hours, to come home and cook the food, clean the apartment, feed their children and their husbands, do the dishes, mop the floors, wash the clothes, and perform other household chores. If black women are to advance and develop, they need time for self-realization. The sharing of housework does not diminish a man's masculinity. Rather, it affirms a man's sense of fairness, love, and security. The bottom line is this: if we are to develop as a people, enlightened education requires that gender distinctions be minimized to those areas where such distinctions are vital and necessary. Vital and necessary. Right? One of the key hallmarks of false masculinity, one of the key hallmarks of dominion-based masculinity, one of the key hallmarks of masculinity that does not allow for the divine feminine to exist, is a masculinity that calls for the suppression of this type of woman. is a masculinity that calls for only women to engage in this type of behavior. It is a masculinity that calls for women to be biologically engineered to do these things better than men. It is foolish. It is foolish. Right? Right now, if you were to ask most men, most black men specifically, what they are looking for in women, they will list off chores. They will list off household duties. They will list off a bunch of things that for most women sound like slavery. And then they want you to turn around and idolize them. They want you to be in awestruck amazement at the things that they have done. That is the false masculine. That is the false masculine that is falling. The masculine that requires the subjugation and the suppression of the divine feminine in order to exist. And that's the reason why so many of y'all brothers are in an uproar. Because the masculinity that you have been taught, the masculinity that you have been given, the masculinity that you so deeply cling to is being destroyed before your eyes. And you are afraid that you are going to be destroyed along with it. But see, therein lies the issue, right? Therein lies the problem. What is happening is that because you refuse to see your masculinity in any other dimension but in the subjugation of women, which, and I've been trying to tell y'all this. I've been telling y'all this since day one, which is a white supremacist and Eurocentric orientation of masculinity. You are afraid that you are going to be annihilated. You are afraid that you are not going to be appreciated. You are afraid that your masculinity will not be valued. Brother, I'm here to tell you, it will not be. I'm here to tell you that it is not valued. Why? Once again, because it requires the subjugation and suppression of women in order to function. That is not a collaborative and communal masculinity. That is not a healthy masculinity. That is not a growth-oriented masculinity. That is not a sustainable masculinity. And that is the reason why so many of y'all are upset right now, because you do not have a woman to subjugate. You do not have a woman to reinforce your masculine by de-escalating her feminine. You do not. And then y'all say, oh, it's the feminist agenda. No, brother. It is the womanist motto. It is the womanist principle. It is the womanist perspective. Right? And actually, if you want me to keep it $1.50, right? Womanism seeks to bring harmony and balance between personhood and nature. Womanism seeks to create and bring back the balance and harmony between personhood and nature, between womanhood and nature. Now, let me remind you that womanism is directly centered and directly rooted in the experiences of black women. The guiding principles of the Association of Black Psychology, the guiding principles of Pan-Africanist thought are almost word for word the same thing. Almost word for word the same thing. This is the reason why a lot of y'all brothers who are engaging in Pan-Africanism, so-called, a lot of y'all hoteps and photeps are all the way off base. Which once again is the reason why you are so upset. It is the reason why you are so angry. You are clinging on to a masculinity that was designed to invalidate, to subjugate, to enslave, to dominate, to ruin, not to build, not to collaborate, not to harmonize. Y'all are in unnecessary competition with y'all women. Why? We as black men are in unnecessary competition with black women. Why? Oh, because they too masculine. They don't know their place. Black women have always been in that place, bro. Always. 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 Black men began thinking like this, like the way that we are thinking right now, after the 70s. Why did we begin thinking like this? That was the same time that a number of economic resources were being pulled out of the black community in the way of factories, in the way of mom and pop jobs, and in the way of integration, removing opportunities from black men and black women and giving them to white women. That is the reason why in the 1990s, white women overtook black men and black women as earners. That is why. It's systematic. It's been systemic, right? So once again, what does this have to do with the false masculine? We as black men have tried to no avail to internalize, to weaponize, and to prioritize a masculinity that was not designed for us to. Every single black man who has been indicted in some way, shape, or form, if you listen close enough, you'll usually hear somebody say that black man was trying to play a white man's game, and they are not wrong. They are not wrong, right? But lo and behold, these white men are starting to lose this game too. You think we the only ones getting indicted on stuff like this? No, sir. And it's just going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening. Right? The fall of the false masculine is calling to alter what it is that you say versus what it is that you do. Whether it be out in the open or behind a closed door. At some point in time, that victim is going to find their voice. And they are going to speak in such a way to say this person is not who it is that they say that they are. They have caused me this type of harm. And a number of brothers are very fearful of this. They are afraid. Brother, that fear, that anger, that apprehension should lead to changed behavior. It should lead to a deeper study of how it is that, once again, the revolutionaries, right? The brothers that brought us to this space, right? How it is that they used to deal with women. And I'm not saying that they were perfect. I'm not, right? Because I've heard about the horrors of the Black Panther Party. I've heard about the horrors of Moringa, right? I've heard about them. I am not saying that these brothers were perfect. I am not saying that our predecessors were perfect. I am not saying that these brothers walk a clearly straight line. What I'm saying is that we watch them walk. What I'm saying is that we've seen them fall. What it is that I'm saying is that we've watched them stumble, and yet we're going to turn around and try to walk the same line. It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. We need to have a come to our male ancestors moment. We need to have a come to our male predecessors moment. We need to have a come to the male village moment and do what T'Challa did when he went back to the ancestral realm in the first Black Panther. We need to sit up and we need to say, y'all was wrong. Y'all were wrong. You were wrong. You created this unnecessary rift between black men and black women because you were afraid of losing this power that you said that you were supposed to have. We internalized this idea that white supremacist oriented masculinity was the best for us, and it is not. That the mentality of the colonized masculine is appropriate, and it is not. That this idea of subjugating women, literally pulling from their life force in order to replenish ours, is alchemically correct. It is not. Because alchemy rests on the law of equivalent exchange. And a lot of y'all brothers are taking way more than you putting in back. A lot of y'all are taking way more than you putting in back. And you shocked and you surprised when spirit come knocking on your door. Hey, brother, I need that back. Y'all talking about the Illuminati signing your soul over to the devil, but you don't recognize that your behaviors in this space make the ink dry. You don't recognize that taking from the divine feminine is akin to signing your soul over to the devil. Why? Because you are putting the universe in a state of chaos and imbalance. That is exactly what the sly spirit fox, the Urugu spirit, did. That is exactly what Beelzebub does. That is exactly what Satan does. And you believe that you are operating in good faith? Come on, brother. Come on. I know your mama taught you better than that. I know your Bible taught you better than that. I know your spirit taught you better than that. But no. For the sake of consumption through idolatry, I believe that this was appropriate. In the Bible, they melted the golden cow, brother. They melted it down. There is no space for a false idol in a space of equivalent exchange in spirit. There's not. A number of us as men have been bamboozled into believing that the pinnacle of manhood is either being idolized or being a martyr. That the pinnacle of manhood is blind following, unwavering and unquestioning loyalty, and the idea that even if we are to do wrong, we should not be called to task for it. A motherfucking lie. A motherfucking lie. I've said it before, traditional black masculinity does not operate that way. Traditional African masculinity does not operate that way. Right? And please do not get me wrong. I am not perfect and I do not come from perfect men, but I do my damnedest to improve. And I don't give a damn who I hold accountable to this. I've held my own father accountable to this. And he couldn't even take the pressure that I was bringing. He couldn't. So once again, your masculinity should not be defined by the amount of women that you are able to subjugate. Your masculinity should not be defined by the amount of women that you are able to manipulate, the amount of people that you are able to get over on, the amount of money that you can create in order to sustain not your community, just you. I firmly believe that true black masculinity, right? As a matter of fact, let me reference another book. The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. Y'all give me a second because I got to find this one. Yeah, because I love this, right? I love this definition. Give me a quick second, y'all, because I got to find that. Where is it? Nope. Ah, there it is. So, it says, I got to go back to the page. A Messai Wise Man, when asked by Terrence Real to name the traits of a good warrior, replied, I refuse to tell you what makes a good Morani warrior, but I will tell you what makes a great Morani. When the moment calls for fierceness, a good Morani is very ferocious. And when the moment calls for kindness, a good Morani is utterly tender. Now, what makes a great Morani is knowing which moment is which. I'm going to say that one more time. I refuse to tell you what makes a good warrior, but I will tell you what makes a great warrior. When the moment calls for fierceness, a good warrior is very fierce. When the moment calls for kindness, a good warrior is utterly tender. Now, what makes a great warrior is knowing which moment is which. A lot of us as black men do not have the emotional awareness, intelligence, and discernment to understand when to be soft, when to be gentle, and when to be ferocious. At times, we weaponize our masculinity and we weaponize our ferocity in order to, once again, place women in line. The spiritual, the divine, and the universal reality is that that woman's place is beside you. Not below, not above, beside. That way, if you are to move in a circle in a 360-degree rotation, you will not miss a degree. You will not miss a beat. Why? Because there will constantly be eyes. And if you communicate with that woman, if that woman trusts you, if that woman moves with you, she will tell you what she saw. She will give you what it is that she has understood. But if you believe that this woman is beneath you, if you believe that this woman is under you, if you believe that this woman's intellectual capacities are less than yours, you will constantly be in a state of disarray. You will constantly be in a state of chaos. You will constantly be in a state of not knowing. You will constantly be in a state of lack of knowledge. Why? Because you refuse to recognize the role of the feminine in the creation of an entire reality. That is it and that is all. Because you will refuse to identify how it is that your emotional your emotional, your heart-based intelligence is just as important as your cognitive-based intelligence. Brother, the fall of the false masculine should only scare you if your masculinity has been built upon falsification. The fall of the false masculine should only intimidate you if your intimidation has been built upon nonsense. Literally nonsense. Things that are not based in sensical fact and figure. You should only be intimidated by the fall of the false masculine if your masculinity was a performance and not based in your true purpose. Brother, the fall of the false masculine has been hundreds of years coming. We were just born into the last quarters of it. And I don't know about y'all, but I plan to adapt. I don't know about y'all, but I plan on being with the sisters. Because goddamn it, there ain't nowhere else I want to be. I don't know about y'all, but I feel like it's time to get my act together in some places so that I recognize when I am still engaging in subjugation, when I am still engaging in this expectation that quote unquote a woman should, right? That I am still relying on sexist notions of application of gender role dynamics in order to formulate my reality. That's not the way. That's not the wave. It simply is not. We have numbers. We have data. We have books. We have research. And we have, once again, proof that is older than we are. Y'all brothers ask me all the time, what books do I recommend black men to read? This one. This one. This one. This one. And this one. This one and this one. Right? I also recommend brothers to read The Will to Change. Always. Always The Will to Change. Right? All About Love by Bell Hooks. I recommend brothers to read this book. Why? Because it will help you unlock yourself. It will help you right some of these inconsistencies that are leading you into the life that you are experiencing. That is leading you into the conflict that you are experiencing. Because, brother, if you want me to keep it a lean bean, the masculinity that you practice as a black man was literally created for your downfall and your subjugation. Right? How you gonna be a breadwinner when they won't give you access to bread? Make it make sense. How are you going to assert your masculinity when every time black men and black women came together to create a thriving community, it was flattened? So how is it that the masculinity that you believe that you practice right now is the masculinity that you are supposed to be practicing moving forward? It is false. It is a false idol. It is a false idea. It is a non-sustainable idea. And it is designed for men who do not mind selling their souls. Literally, not complaining about how it is that you've been harmed. Not complaining about how it is that you feel. Not complaining about when it is that you are in pain. These are the factors, or these are the portions, or these are the fine print of the contract of manhood that a lot of us sign or a lot of us have been forced to sign. I think y'all need to review them contracts. Because you have literally sold your soul to a masculinity that would replace you in a heartbeat, that would not mourn you if you were to die, that would not venerate your existence if you were to fall off of the face of this earth. But the Afrikaan-centered, the African-centered masculinity calls for you to do for the community so that in return the community will be willing to do for you. It calls for you to keep yourself disciplined, to keep yourself emotionally open and available so that the spirit of not only the creator, but the spirit of others, man or woman, can flow through you and impart you with the knowledge that you need in order to move forward. But brother, the age of the false masculine is over. It's done. It's dusted. It's on its last leg. Dick finna be in the dirt. And we really gonna see who paid attention to the signs, who read the writing on the wall, or who clung to their illusions and to their presumptions of a man having to stand on the shoulders of a woman in order to reach the hem of God. But good people, great people, God's people, thank y'all for tuning in for another episode of The Antidote, hosted by yours truly, Professor Odies. And as I said, and as I say all the time, man, the replay will be available. Yes. The replay will be available on YouTube Wednesday at 8 p.m. And we gonna see y'all there. But good people, great people, God's people. That's the end of this recording. I'll see y'all next time.